Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. We are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, insurance, because our Fed chair made a little announcement saying he doesn't think that a lot of people are going to be able to find affordable housing due to insurance, especially areas that are affected by more and more storm damage. I've been watching this stream for many Sundays. Sounds very familiar to something I said. People that are living in the coastlines of Florida, Louisiana, over there in Alabama, all the way across. We're going to be seeing a lot more people making a choice. I actually saw a woman online talking about how she had bought a house at the beginning of 2020, and she's gotten her newest insurance bill, and she's going to have to sell. So it's going to be interesting to see if people change their either their jobs or locations due to insurances. There is a poll question out there said, do you think more and more people are going to just decide like not to live in certain areas because of due to insurance? Charlton said something really interesting. He said, I answered no. As all states have their issues with insurance, the companies are spending out of spreading out their storm losses. I don't think they're spreading them out enough, and I think that's why we've gotten to the position that we've gotten in. Like I think that's what part of the problem is. And I'm going to do something a little different today. Eddie, if you can make a ticker that says at the bottom, if you have a comment about insurance and insurance companies, write the word comment first so Eddie can put it up on the screen so we know, but it has to be a comment related to insurance and what the Fed had said about mortgages as well. So we're going to be getting into a article that was talking about what Jerome Powell had said. It wasn't much of what I have been warning everybody about in the first place, but I want everybody to be able to get their 2 cents in, because a lot of times when this chat is going by, I can't see the comments. I only see the questions. So if you have a specific comment related to this topic, I would love you to put the word comment first so Eddie can put that comment on the screen. If it's not related to the insurance conversation, he ain't putting it up. Just say it. The other thing too is we're going to talk about, which I think is super interesting, and I want to get you guys' opinion about this as well. But this is going to be a little bit further in the show. I want to ask you about. There's a proposal by a few states, and there's been whispers of getting rid of property tax. And I want to get your opinion on how you think this will look. Now, a couple governors have voiced their opinion about this and how they want to get rid of it. I want to hear your thoughts on it, because how I think about it and how you think about it, and I don't know. Like I'm interested to see how this is going to go about, because I'm like, how do you pay for things if you don't have property insurance? But then again, thinking in my brain, how do you pay for things if you don't have property insurance? Like roads, schools, all those things that we pay with property insurance. So property taxes. So we'll talk about that later. Okay. So, right. Let's get into the article. The one that says the insurance is going to kill mortgages. Oh, Eric the Blue said my insurance only went up 25%. Well, it wasn't last year, but the year before mine went up, doubled. It doubled the price. All right. This is it says insurance could kill mortgages if in some parts of the US. Eddie, can you squeeze out a little bit? Because you're cutting off the word parts. You're cutting off the word paths. Oh, maybe they didn't. Yeah, well, insurance could kill mortgages in some of the U.S. Federal Reserve Chair gives testimony on a grim vision of the future for home buyers. Hey, SB, it's good to see you. In a wide-range discussion on the effects of Trump's tariffs to the mortgage rate cuts, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has warned that obtaining mortgages in certain parts of the United States may become nearly impossible in the future due to mounting challenges in the insurance sector. So, if you put that, like, the thing it being is, if you get a mortgage, no mortgage company on the planet is going to give you a mortgage if you can't get insurance in the area. And as more and more carriers are deciding, you know what, we're not going to write any new policies, the cost for someone to insure some of these smaller houses it's cost prohibitive. Even if their mortgage, let's just say their mortgage payment was, no more than $2,000, then they get the insurance, and now they're going to have to pay $3,000 for insurance each month. It's not worth it for them to buy the house. So that's why he's saying what he's saying. Like, mortgages are going to suffer in those areas because they can't get insurance. So speaking during a semi-annual testimony before Congress, Powell addressed the growing issue of insurers withdrawing from regions in high risk for disaster areas. If you fast forward 10 to 15 years, there's going to be regions of the country where you can't get a mortgage, explaining that the financial institutions and insurance providers are increasingly avoiding areas prone to wildfires, hurricanes, and other environmental threats. That's including tornadoes. That's including flooding. We see it here a lot with flooding. The ongoing instability in the insurance industry stems largely from escalating and frequency of severity of climate-related disasters, which have led to substantial financial losses for insurers. Major companies, including State Farm, have already canceled thousands of policies in high-risk zones. This trend has left many homeowners with limited options, forcing them to rely on the state-backed insurance programs. These are the last resort insurers, often with significant higher premiums, and provide little or limited coverage compared to private alternatives. I don't know what your state's insurance policy is, but in Florida, it's Citizens. I forget what it is here in Louisiana, but the state-run insurance program here is in Florida is terrible. Like, they literally give you the worst coverage, and it's wicked expensive. So some people that actually have no mortgage whatsoever, they're like, you know what, I'm just going to take my chances. Mortgage lenders generally require homeowners to carry insurance as a condition to their loans. With fewer insurers willing to underwrite policies in disaster-prone areas, homebuyers face great difficulties in securing financing. Powell emphasized that banks and insurers will not continue to provide loans and policies if risk is deemed unsustainable. And, this is the question I want to ask you. Okay, so insurance companies, to bring them back, if we look at a place like, let's just say, Hawaii, for example, California, even here in Louisiana, when we're rebuilding these houses, what if we made a deal with the insurance companies as a state saying, hey, we would like you to come back. So we're going to raise our standards of rebuilding these areas so you'll insure us. There's a house that was sitting out there in the middle of California that was built to withstand fire. And in this neighborhood, it was one of the only houses that was still standing. And it was because it was designed specifically to avoid and be more fire resistant than traditional homes. A lot of those houses were built in the early, 50s, 60s, 70s. They weren't concerned about, fire related problems like they are today. If we made a deal with the insurance companies, if we rebuilt these houses, I think they could come back. Like here in Louisiana, we have all these houses that are built on slabs, and we're in a flood zone. I mean, I think 25 or even 45% of the state is below sea level. So why aren't we building them on piers instead of building them on slabs? If you build them on piers, water can go under the house instead of through the house. Makes more sense to me. We could bring the insurance carriers back that would want to insure us if we were required to build to those standards. I think that's part of the solution. I mean, you let me know what you think in the comment section. A lot of people say, you know what? Mother Nature has told us that they don't want us here, so we need to move and find better locations. Maybe that's your opinion. I'd like to hear what it is. Commenter says, glad to be free again. My home insurance doubled in 2 years in Phoenix. No major risks, fire, quake, flood, storms, or any claims, strictly of lack of regulation and greed. And in my opinion, and I believe a lot of what's happening with insurance companies is there's a huge amount of greed going on. If you look at, and I talk about this all the time, and I get a raft of crap from people saying, like, it's not their fault they make all those money, oh, blah, blah, blah. They're beholden to shareholders like many companies are. And whenever you see them claiming that they can't afford to pay out these claims, but then they're giving their CEO another $25 million bonus on top of their regular salary on top of it every single year for the last 25 years, to me, that's a waste of funds. Like, if your company is in financial distress, why are you getting a $25 million bonus? There is a lot of greed involved in this too, but who's going to oversee the insurance industry to make sure that the funds are going in the right place? Like, this has been going on for years. It's the system that's in place. We've accepted their terms for years and years and years. It wasn't until we got in trouble and we needed their help that they were like, sorry, but thank you for letting me, buy my third vacation home. I agree with you on that. Brian says, comment, why aren't insurance companies being investigated for collusion when they are citing the same reasons for drastic increase in rates? Sounds like price fixing to me. And it could be. Who leads that investigation, though? Who's going to be the one? What organization would actually investigate these insurance companies for either price fixing or, any kind of misappropriating of funds? There's nobody to oversee them, right? It's in every state, they always say the same thing. It's like, one minute you're hearing from one expert, they're like, oh, there's no problem with the climate. We're fine. These are just normal patterns in our climates, blah, 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 blah. And then the insurance companies are citing, well, the reason why this is all going up is because of climate change. And then you have the whole infighting with that. I think for years and years and years, they kept insurance rates fairly low because they didn't have as, many claims. And even though they saw on the horizon, because they've been warning us since I was in high school, they've been warning us since I was in high school that we were going to see more and more weather events like, that we've been seeing. And now the insurance company says, well, there was no way for us to predict this. This came out of the blue. We didn't know. And it honestly ticks me off. Every time I hear this, I'm like, did you ever go to high school classes whatsoever, any science class in high school? Because they've been telling you this since the 90s, the early 90s at that this was on the way. And you're a risk assessment company. That is your freaking job. And you didn't assess for the risk in time. I don't buy it. I don't buy it one stinking bit. Not one bit. Beth R says, is it really climate or mismanagement of brush? As far as like like some people will say, there is some words out there that say, oh, it was because of like all the trees and like blah 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 blah. They had an unusual amount of wind that came. In California, they had been talking about that for 30 years, that if they got a windstorm like that and then one ember caught on fire, it was going to happen, right? There was no doubt it was going to happen. And then it finally happened. Again, this was something that they had been warned about for years that, but as you know, if you've watched some of the stories, a lot of those fires were not like naturally made. There were people going out there doing, causing some of these fires just to keep themselves in the news, or I don't know, maybe they were trying to be a hero. I dated a guy years ago that his dad was a fire chief, and he said that every single time there was a hero in the news that saved people from a fire, he was like, those were the first people they investigated because they were the ones that were trying to get in the news to be the hero. And they're usually the ones that start it. But there was several fires that were started just to start,
I have a question on this comment.
What's that?
Was it the brush that caused all the flooding in North Carolina or Tennessee?
Or even here in Louisiana. I mean, it's just, there are weather related events that happen, There's just weather related events. That wind that was kicking up was equivalent to a hurricane force winds. Yeah. Mars is at a flood zone, so insurance should be super low there, but they'll still ask you if you want it. Damn well they're going to still try to sell it to you. Charlton, you're funny. You're right. You were right. Overjoyed says paying into insurance for decades, have one claim, and they leave you high and dry. And then that's the other thing too. There's people. There was like my parents. I think they had one claim, and it was because a tornado hit their house, and then you get punished. They have been paying for, over 30 years to the same insurance company, State Farm, paying. And then all of a sudden they needed, one thing to be fixed. And it was like, that's it. You used our service. So now you're going to have to pay more. I don't make the rules. This would look a lot different if I made the rules. The insurance commissioner is supposed to investigate them, aren't they? Well, let's be honest. The insurance, every office that is held currently today can be paid for, right? So investigations can not be so investigative, I should say, if someone was willing to pay enough, correct? I mean, it's very possible. I used to feel like there was more ethics in things. There was like these steps, even though the wheels of justice would move slowly, but eventually something down the line, somebody will get it. It feels less and less like that these days. I feel like more and more people get away with a lot of things as long as they have enough of this. It says, question. It's a combination of a lot of things. Yeah, there's a combination of a lot of things that cause these things, but I mean, you can't stop a windstorm. That's for sure. Eric the Blue says, don't most, if not all states have insurance regulation division that investigates collusion? If not, what about the state attorney general's office? So yeah, so it'd be an individual state thing. You're correct. You are correct. But it doesn't seem like a lot of these states have the same leadership that will stand up to the insurance companies like they had in years past. I tell this story often. Years ago, Eddie and I lived in Florida. We had Jeb Bush was our governor at the time. And the State Farm was in the area, and they said, hey, look, it's getting too expensive for us to cover all these storm damages that have come through. We're going to go ahead and pull our homeowners insurance in the area. And our governor said, okay, State Farm, you want to go ahead and pull those policies out of the state? You can go ahead and do that, but go ahead and take your car insurance as well. You can't cover people's homes. If you can't cover people's homes, you're not going to be able to cover their cars too. And they were like, oh, well, you know what? We didn't mean that. Oh, no, never mind. And they stayed in the state. And then, we just don't have people that's willing to stand up to insurance companies like they used to. I haven't seen it. Maybe, in your state, maybe you have. I haven't seen it in my state, but I like when the leadership actually stands on business and supports the people. Anyways, before the fires, some insurance companies wouldn't renew people's insurance in the same areas of the fires, so they knew it was coming. There is some theory about that. I don't know if there's any evidence, but let me just put it this way. They may know it is coming because it's been supported by their own investigations beforehand. Like, there's only so much time is ticking, and it hasn't happened in X amount of years, but they've been forewarned for so long. They're like, you know what? It's just a matter of time. It's kind of like living here on the coast. You may have not gotten hit by a hurricane in the last 10 years, but you live on the coast, you're going to get hit by a hurricane. So some insurance companies say, hey, you know what? I've been there for the last 20 years. We haven't gotten in this area yet, hasn't been hit, but we're probably due. And they start pulling back their policies. It wasn't necessarily they were like contriving for this to happen. It could be just that they saw the writing on the wall and they took action, Lady B says, Kristina, I have tuned in from Southampton, New York. Do you know what changes Boxable has made to building their houses? I have not checked on Boxable in probably over a year. The last time I saw, they were making a 2-story house, which they had before because you could stack the boxes on beforehand. But I haven't, my whole thing is that I want to see somebody, I want to meet somebody that actually has one of those Boxables in their backyard. And before, I have yet to have seen anybody actually have one. I know that they've done some government contracts. They're going out somewhere. Somebody's got one, but I haven't seen anybody talk about them, live in one. I need to see the real life living proof that these homes exist in people's yards and as their actual homes. And don't tell me Elon Musk, he never lived in it. He just put it on SpaceX. That doesn't count. It's wild, West Texas right now. Yeah, it's a wild West, West Texas right now. Is that because of the insurance, James? Is that why it makes it wild? Kenneth says for-profit insurance companies are in business to make money, not give it away. Greed rules. Fairness doesn't factor in. So maybe is the solution then, Kenneth, is to have not to have for-profit insurance companies? Is that the answer? Does each state need to implement for to have that happen? Is that the answer? Because we used to have not-for-profit hospitals, right? We used to have them all across the country. They don't exist anymore. We privatized it, and now what would have happened? The insurance for going to those hospitals that are for profit went through the roof, right? Everything is now so much more expensive. So is the answer to make everything not for profit, like things like insurance and health care in hospitals? I mean, is that the answer? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Misty says, hi from Ohio, Iowa. God, my dyslexia, man. My dyslexia is top notch. I got a brain that makes me really seem dumb. So Bill says, economic shock, tariffs, governor layoffs, uncertainty will crash the housing market first. You think the housing market will go first if there's an economic collapse? I'm still trying to figure out what is going to be, because everybody has been talking about a housing crash since 2020 when the home prices have been going up like crazy. My theory on this, Bill, is that it's going to be a shock because people have lost their jobs. So the economic collapse would be a collapse in the jobs market. As more and more people get laid off, many of those people have mortgages. If they can't pay their mortgages, then they will either have to do a short sale or go into foreclosure. Luckily, a good portion of people may not even have to go into a foreclosure situation because they're sitting on a lot of equity that has been gained over the years. So even if home prices were to peel back, it wouldn't be that much of a hit like it was in 2008. Those people had no equity in their homes, and they were actually upside down because the market went so incredibly high. They only lived in that house maybe 1 to 2 years. They gained no equity, and so they were upside down. And that's why you saw a lot of short sales, and then you saw a lot of foreclosures. Let me take a little sippy sip of tea here. It's nice and hot. Can you hear that? Can you hear me drinking? In my head, it sounds like it's like it's so loud. The Peaceful Warrior 400 years says, in my state, we have an insurance commissioner, but they don't really do much for the consumers. I honestly can tell you, I don't know what our insurance commissioner, I don't think I've ever seen his name ever mentioned on nothing. Nothing. I don't know what state you're in. So they say it's a combination. 56 Shrine says it's a combination of leadership, corruption, wind, and suspicious fires that melt things that normal fire would not melt. Yeah, I've seen some of this stuff on, I've seen videos talking about it, everything. I am not a scientist, so I I leave that to other people to investigate, and then give me your report and tell me what you found, because I'm not a genius when it comes to fires. Um, I learned my lesson years ago. Like I said, I dated a guy, and his dad was a fire investigator, and he would tell me all sorts of stories, and I'm like, I would have never figured that on my own. um, it has just become a money grab. What a shame, and it feels like that, especially when you've been paying it for years, right? I saw people here in Louisiana during the 2016 floods have their homes devastated by flooding. And so many of them had full insurance policies, but what they had to go through to get their house back into shape was absolutely ridiculous. Um, that like it became everybody that I know that actually got it done and got the insurance company to finally pay out. It was because somebody in the family had the time to sit there and make that their full-time job, to just keep going after the insurance company and keep wearing them down, because the insurance company's job is to wear you down. So you're just like, fine, fine, fine. I'll just pay for it myself. You have to stay on them. You have to stay on them in order for them to pay out. And a lot of people don't have that time or that energy or the resources or the effort or nowhere to, push the buttons. It shouldn't be like this. We pay for it for all these years. Cover what you're supposed to cover, you know? I concur. I concur. All right. Nilka Tree? I hope I'm saying your name right. It says, but then State Farm will come out and drop your coverage because you have 2 dogs on your 15 acres. Oh, I had somebody that their coverage got revoked because they thought that they had put a trampoline in their backyard, and it wasn't even in their yard because somebody had flown. I guess the insurance adjusters had flown a drone, and they said that they had a trampoline in their backyard. That was the neighbor's backyard. And then they also had said that they had significant water damage to their roof. And they were like, we just had this replaced 5 years ago. What are you talking about? Significant water damage. So then they send a roofer out there, which again, this is your own time, your own money. Send a roofer out there, examine the roof to show the significant water damage. Come to find out, it's just, how like rain falls and it kind of discolors your roof. That wasn't water damage. That's just mold in the environment. And they had to get their own report that they paid for to make sure that the insurance company still covered them. That's stupidity. That's ridiculous. Nobody physically saw eyes on it. Nobody walked to that roof, but the insurance company threw their drone up in the air and just said, you know what? We're not going to cover you anymore. How is that fair? And, and they can drop you on the like, just like that. Like they just call you up and say, hey, you know what? You're dropped. They should have a time frame. Like somebody had said earlier that, right before that, people were getting dropped for their fire coverage on their insurance policies, like days before this even happened. That should not be allowed. And, they should give people at least 60 days, at least minimum 60 days to find a new policy to cover them. They shouldn't, especially if you've been with them for 10 years, they shouldn't be allowed to just cancel you on because they smelled a fart in the wind. You know what I'm saying? It's just ridiculous. Charlton, come on. It must have been the space lasers that started the California fires. Don't start. None of that nonsense here. Rick Smith says, doesn't the U.S. government pay for the people who built their homes on the coast that they will? Okay. Doesn't the U.S. government pay for people who built their homes on the coast and then they'll get destroyed by a hurricane? The U.S. government doesn't pay for that. Your homeowner's insurance pays for the rebuilding of a home. And I think the state should require, if you're going to rebuild a house, you should meet the newest code. Of course, they have to, but I think that should be even a stronger code for, hurricane-prone areas. There's a standard code for Louisiana, and you have to have hurricane straps on roofs in certain houses. They're like these little clips that are in your roof. But I mean, I think they need to even think about aesthetically how some of these houses are built here in Louisiana that may not really be beneficial, even though this is the style and the look of Louisiana. Like, start bringing those roof lines down. If you saw our houses, they look like Papa Smurf houses. The roofs are huge on top of it. And he pull up a picture so people can see what a typical house here looks like in Louisiana, like just a typical, 3-bedroom, 2-bath Louisiana house. You see these roof lines, they're insane. And it costs a lot of money to replace these roofs. If the state required for those roof lines to come down, I'm not saying that the insurance companies would not would bring down the rates, but first of all, it wouldn't cost as much to replace it. Secondly of all, I mean, you wouldn't probably have as much damage because you don't have this ridiculous roof line. I got to show you that. Like, when we moved here, I was like, what's up with these roofs? It looks so weird to me. It looked like the cap on a Papa Smurf house. Eddie, can you pull one up? My daughter's having a trouble with her car, so he may not be there. Da-da-da-da-da. Ed, oh, here he is. Yeah. Well, this one isn't even really showing it as much, but you'll get an idea. The roof line is like half the size of the pitch is half the size of the house. It's ridiculous. And we have high winds, and that's all the way heading all the way to the coastline. And it's I don't know why we do it, but I don't make the rules. Kristina made the rules. It will look a lot different because these houses would not be sitting on slabs. Yeah, see something like this. You see that? This should not be a thing, but it's a thing here. I think if we all worked together to get some of these prices to come down, I think we could have like a more symbiotic relationship with our insurance companies. Brian says Boxable is now promoting units in single occupancy rooms where the space has to pull double duty even more because these units are even smaller. Boxwell is now promoting units akin to a single family occupancy rooms where the space has to pull double duty even more because of the smaller units are even smaller. So they're even smaller than like 300 square feet. I know the Boxwell is just a box. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It is just a box. So like the living room, the bedroom, the kitchen is all in one room. The only door that you have is to the bathroom. They were designed to basically have like an ADU in your backyard. That was the idea behind them. So, and originally, if you guys don't remember, they were $40,000. They're a lot more than $40,000 now, and I still have yet to see anybody's have one in their backyard. Things we need to live. Jaquisa, I hope I said your name right. Things we need to live shouldn't be profit based. That's what I think. But yeah, I know. That's what I'm like. I agree. Like there has to be some give and take. I realize we live in a capitalistic society. I realize that. That's what has been America. But there are things like food, health, food and health and housing, I think should be off the list, to protect these things, food, health, and housing. It shouldn't be a luxury. Housing has now turned into a luxury. To have a house is a luxury. A place to live that you can call your own is now a luxury. It used to be just a utility. It used to be a thing that was a utility, and now it's a luxury. We've gone wild. And then people tried to justify it. I will never forget this. I said on a live stream that I think every human being on this planet deserves to find an affordable place, an affordable, safe place to live. And you would have thought I drowned puppies. The comment section went berserk because I said every single human being deserves to find a safe, affordable place for them to live. I'm not saying free. I never said free. I'm just saying everybody deserves a place that is for them to be able to afford, that is safe for them to live in. Who knew that was like the most controversial thing to say? I mean, Sometimes I'm like, did people not take their Wheaties this morning? Did you not take your vitamins? Like, why is everybody so wound up about something like that? Crazy. Aram says, question, what do you know or tell us about people taking control of your home and saying it's theirs? What do you do? Are you talking about squatting? There's a squatting problem. I talked about this in a few videos. There's a squatting problem in a few states where people will find a home that is vacant. They'll create a fake lease agreement and they'll say, oh, I have a lease agreement. You can't kick me out. And it takes a long time to get those people out of your home. Some states are a lot easier than others. Here in the state of Louisiana, it is very easy to get somebody out of your home. It's a lot easier than, let's just say, California. And many states have taken steps to make it a lot less easy for the squatters. They realized this had become a really big problem. And, there's even another scam that's out there where people are going to they find out that the house is paid for, and then they try to change the name on the deed. And then they become the owners of the house and then try to have them evicted. There was a lady that was doing that in Georgia, and this guy had been paying on his house for years. And then he got this letter in the mail and he was like, what the heck is this? And they caught her. They caught that lady. And it wasn't the first time she had done it. She had done it to several houses, But, scammers are going to scam, man. They get creative. They get super creative. So the next thing I want to talk about, since we've been talking about insurance and how incredibly expensive it is, what if I was to tell you, well, now that insurance is so expensive, your state is going to no longer require you to pay property taxes. And you're like, huh, on surface, when you first hear it, you're like, God damn, that sounds good, man. I don't want to pay property taxes for yours. Everybody always tells me in the comment section, you never really truly own a home because if you don't pay your property taxes, they can take that house away from you, which is entirely true. But Governor DeSantis is suggesting no property taxes. North Dakota is looking at no property taxes. State of Texas is looking at no property taxes. And there have been whispers recently by the current administration, the presidential administration, not anything confirmed, but they are talking about getting rid of property taxes. On the surface, this sounds good. And I was like, instantaneously, I was like, God damn, I don't want to have to pay property taxes anymore. I'm all for it. And then I was like, wait a minute. What do property taxes pay for? Right? Property taxes pay for your fire departments. Property taxes can pay for your law enforcement in the area. Your property taxes can pay for schools. Your property taxes can pay for roads. You have a big snowstorm that comes through and needs to be de-iced. Well, that's because of your property taxes. That's what covers it. How would they deflect that money? So I want you, make sure you put the word comment in there. Put your comment and tell me if you think this is a good idea. I want to hear your comments about this. Super chat. Miss Melanated says, my coworker had State Farm. We live in Chicago. And they had some damage State Farm paid, but they dropped them. Here it's jokes. Her husband was a vice president of State Farm. Oh, oh my gosh. Yeah. And that's the thing. You use them for that one thing. How can you help a tornado hitting your house? And you paid on time all those years, but now they're just going to say, sayonara. Well, at least they paid and they didn't give them a hard time about that. Peter says, question, are you implying that things are not fair and somehow low-level positions of power could be swayed by money? Yes, Peter. Yes. If anything has taught me in the last 20 years of my life, that is exactly what I'm implying. 100%. Nicholas says, comment, if property taxes go away, then all services will be billed individually to the citizen. Bingo. That is exactly right. So your house is on fire, right? Your house is on fire. And you're like, somebody help, my house is on fire. Somebody says, well, call the fire department. And somebody says, well, what's their rates? And somebody says, well, I don't know. And then, so you're in an emergency situation and you're trying to get the best bid for putting out the fire in your house right now because There's no property tax that's covering the house on fire. This is a bad idea. It's
In
bad.
all fairness, I believe the way Texas is proposing it is
Uh-huh.
that they would do a statewide small one and then allow you to vote within your area for the services and if any raises needed to happen on those services. If I'm correct, that's how Texas had it. Could be wrong.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, pull it up. Pull up the article. There, you could have it as any of those. Pick one state. We'll look at it together. The other thing too is in it, like, okay, so now let's just say you live in a neighborhood and you have an HOA, and then your HOA is like, oh, since there's no more fire department, but we have our own privatized HOA fire department right here. And then we have our own security service right here. So now your HOA dues are going up. The reason that a lot of HOAs are super expensive now is because they cover the cost of repairing the road. They cover the cost of salting it during a storm. They cover the cost of all the lighting in the neighborhood because they work as like their own individual governments. So now you live in a neighborhood. If there was no property tax, that's what would happen with your HOAs. Texas matters. Should Texas eliminate property taxes? I do kind of feel like if you're over the age of like 85, like you shouldn't have to pay it. Texas homeowners, property taxes in Texas are the 7th highest in the U.S. Residents in Texas pay an effective rate about 1.7%, one of the highest in the country, according to Rocket Mortgage. The median list price for a home that closes is $285, with the average annual tax of $4,800. Ooh, excuse me. This impacts renters as well. 20% of the average rent goes towards property taxes. They're proposing that investors in Washington state and millionaires will pay property taxes, not people who own one property. That's interesting. On March 2024 Republican primary ballot, there was a question: should Texas eliminate property taxes? 77% of primary voters said yes. It was clear. It was a clear message, and one that Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick picked up on. But remember, in 2022, Patrick had said this: if you eliminate property taxes, then you have no money left to do anything. This is a joke. You can't have one without the other. Do you add another, like, if you get rid of property taxes, do you add it on purchases for goods, like goods and services? So that becomes like you're right. Like, instead of paying property taxes, just another tax. I mean, here in Louisiana, we pay nearly 10% for items here. The reality is of getting rid of all property taxes collected just by school districts would cost the state $39.5 billion in the tax year of 2023. That's according to the legislative board. This is in Texas. Additionally, the state would have to shell out another $42 billion to cover the property taxes collected by cities, counties, and special taxing districts. Yeah, but think about, like, on your ballot, right? So whenever you do, like, all these, besides when you're doing your votes for, like, an extension to the library, there's all these other taxes that are attached to it. I don't know if this is going to work. Do you guys think that would work? Do you think they could get rid of property tax? I think once you're over the age of, like, let's say you had a mortgage for 30 years, you paid that mortgage for 30 years, you're retired, and let's just say at 70, you didn't have to pay property taxes anymore. But if you are no longer with us, you could, like, if it was inherited by a family member, then the property taxes start all over again for, let's just say, 50 years. 50 years. You have to pay property taxes for 50 years. Do you think that would work? Do you think that would work? I don't know. I haven't done any investigation on it. I thought about this, and I'm like, if Florida's considering this, or are they just doing lip service to make people happy, which is entirely possible. It's not like politicians throw things out there to get elected and then nothing ever happens to it. That never happens. we got a comment says property taxes should go away. A flat excise tax on everyone. Just because you own a home and the property you pay for everyone else who doesn't. Yeah, I'm like, and that's the thing. So you live in an apartment complex, but the part of your rent for the apartment complex is going towards property taxes. So, everybody is paying for those services. But if you I kind of look at it as like, if you're older, right? And your kids haven't been in school for like the last 20 years, you haven't used public services for anything. Maybe, why don't you give those people a break? They're on fixed incomes at this point. And some states do that. They do have like you can freeze your taxes if you're over a certain age and you're at a certain income. I don't know. I think it's something to be looked at. Helen said they could get rid of residential taxes and keep commercial building taxes. Wouldn't that take care of public service salaries? It could. It definitely could. That's a thought. The commercial real estate would still have to pay those property taxes, but they can't absorb the whole bill, right? They can't absorb the whole bill. There would have to be another way to cover those costs, because you just can't just say, you know what, just go ahead and stop spending, so that way you don't have to drive on the road. I mean, we have infrastructure problems that have been going on for decades, and now we're gonna like even have less money in the pot. They would have to really plan this sucker out before they do it. Eric the Blue says another option, if the state goes away, is a massive increase in tax for everything, groceries included. There's no free lunch for state taxes. Yes, there's no free lunch. And one of the funniest things that people always tell me, they're like, oh, I'm going to move to Florida because there's no state tax. I'm going to move to Texas because there's no state tax. And I'm like, okay, have you seen how much your property taxes are for that same house that you've lived in Georgia, right? That same exact house, same square footage. Go ahead and figure out the property taxes. You're going to be surprised. You're going to be totally surprised. And when I moved to Louisiana, everybody was like, you're going to be paying so much more. I mean, you have like the 10% taxes on your stuff and blah, blah, blah. Well, I moved from Florida and I moved here, and everything it ended up being a wash. I didn't pay any more or less. It was the same amount. At the end of the year, everything was exact wash. But I will say this, but I did have a house that was like twice the size I had in Florida. That was the bonus. So, Washington State did a 30-year car tab. Washington State did a $30 car tab. How much is paid now? I've never thought that $30 car tab would work. Now just get to laugh at people still mad that they don't pay the $30 decades later. I don't know what that is. The $30 car tab. Is that $30
admission sticker we pay?
Yeah, but I mean, I wonder if that's covering like school costs, or what is that? Is that like covering what property taxes would? We have an emission sticker here. Like, you have to go in and get your emission sticker to make sure. What exactly is that for? I mean, what is that helping? Honestly, I mean, if we're being for realsies, I have not gotten, like, you got to get the inspection sticker. They go in there, they stick a few things in there, and then they're like, they pop. What's the big deal? I mean, how many cars are they really getting off the road because they don't have the proper emissions? To me, it seems so silly. I think that's another money grab thing. The juice isn't worth the squeeze, in my opinion, but I'm sure it's just another way to make money. I'm sure of it. Charlton says, so instead of property taxes, you saying local income tax, sales tax? Okay, how about start with state tariff on all goods sold in state also? So are you proposing, or we're going to throw this back at you, Charlton, are you proposing that each state should be run like its own individual country? So maybe we should have a border too, and have our own state I mean, I don't think that would work. Honestly, because nobody has on their labeling and packaging, this was only made in the state of Nebraska. Maybe they do though. Oh, I gotta chew on this one. That's gonna be one of those things I'm gonna be sitting on at night. But like at a fee, because the cheese came from Nebraska, an additional tax because it was imported from Georgia. Those Georgia peaches now cost you more because you live in Louisiana because they added a tax. Hmm. Hmm. Ooh, you're making my brain bleed. I'll have to think on that one. I don't think that's a great idea, but it's food for thought, though. Lauren said, we moved from Texas to Arkansas. When we left, our last property tax bill was $4,800 per year. Now it's $130 per year in Arkansas. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying because our tax bill in Florida was like, it was scary. And so we moved to Louisiana, and our first tax bill, our property tax bill, I think it was just at like $987 or something like that. And I was like, surely this is wrong because we had built a brand new house. And I'm like, surely this is just for the land. Next year will be even more. So yeah, the new tax bill came in. The property tax bill came in. It was $1,200 for the entire year. For the entire year, I was like, to me, that felt like I won the lottery. Overjoyed says, I think the Villages does it as a CDD. They have
COD.
no, it's CDD.
Oh, it is CDD.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. See, Mr. Corrector.
Sorry.
That's okay. I usually get it wrong 90% of the time, so it was finally right to be right. I think the Villages does it as a CDD. They still have property taxes, but roads and the fire department are billed separately because the Villages, I don't know if you guys know what it is, but it's almost now it's its own city, but at one time it wasn't. So it was like they had to have extra coverage. So I guess they did like a privatize. Is that what they're doing? Or is it part of their how did they do that? What does CDD stand for anyways? I want to know what that means. States with no income tax have higher property taxes. Yes, if the property taxes were eliminated, then all states would have a high income tax and sales on luxury taxes. You know what? Yeah, so they like if you wanted to buy a car, so if they were to offset it, like things like cars and boats and those kinds of things, they could add it to that possibly. And people would try to get around it and say, I'm going to go ahead and buy my car in Arkansas so I don't have to pay that exorbitant luxury tax. But as soon as you drive that sucker right into Texas and you want to go register it, you're still going to have to pay that tax. Here in Louisiana, we had to pay an impact fee when we registered our cars, an impact fee because we moved to the area. Oh, thank you. CDD stands for Community Development District. Thank you, Overjoyed. Thank you. Peter says, California has been doing ballot initiatives for decades. Tax cuts always pass and increased benefits always pass. And yet tax increases are as illustriously I swear I'm not an idiot. I just can't read because I'm dyslexic.
It always fails.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. What's the word say?
It always fails.
He's not even going to read the word either. So there. Austro. Oh, man, Peter, you made me look dumb. That's all right. That's okay. I'm allowed to be dumb. Yeah. But you know what else always fails? I'm going to tell you what else fails, Peter. Every time somebody ever brings up affordable housing in an area, they're like, I don't want that because it's going to bring down my property value. Au contraire, mon frere, that is not true. The cost per square foot in your little tiny little kingdom in your neighborhood that you pay your HOA fees just because they put an affordable apartment complex next door does not make your house cost less per square foot. They always shoot that down. It's it's become a real issue in areas like Bozeman, Montana, and areas that like the super uber wealthy have moved to, because they move to that area and they don't want affordable housing being built next to their mansions, or mansions in that case. So like, it's going to bring down my property value. No, it's not. Mr. Hollywood man. Austerity. Thank you. Who's on first? Austerity. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Austerity.
Now, do you know the meaning?
Go ahead, Eddie. Throw it up there.
Economic policies that involve cutting government.
I would have looked it up, because I hate not knowing words. That's what I do when I read books. I'm like, what does that mean? Pull out the old Google Webs. All right. Speaking of the old Google Webs, we got a phone call this week. I don't know if you guys know, but right here is the phone number to my automatic AI answering service. This AI, Kristina, she's freaking rude. I'm not gonna lie. Like, every time I listen back, I feel bad, because the AI robot Kristina, she tends to interrupt as somebody's talking. Just talk over her, because she's obnoxious. I do appreciate everybody that leaves a phone message. And, every week, no matter what the call is, I put it up on the screen. So it's that time. So go ahead, Eddie, put the phone call up. That was message that was left for us this week. Da-da-da, da-da-da.
This is Shelly. I'm just calling off the number on the screen here. I have a question. I was just briefly watching, first time I've watched you, and I've seen one of the commenters have said that when you're buying a manufactured home, not to, like, the square footage was measuring the square feet per dollar or whatever it is different. Can you, like, state what that is again on the live channel or whatever, or on their next video, or you know what I mean?
Okay, so there has been confusion with the public, and there's a difference. Some people think that the square footage can be measured from the outside of the home, and that measures the inside square footage. That's not the case. You have to measure on the inside of the house to measure for the square footage. Price per square foot on a manufactured home is going to be less than a traditional built home, because they're built to completely different standards. A manufactured mobile home sits on a chassis. So that means that it's not on a permanent foundation. Even if it is on a permanent foundation, it will still appraise for less than a traditional home. Price per square foot, it will appraise for less. That doesn't mean you can't make any money on them when you go to sell them in the future. It just means that that's something you should be aware of. So when you have it measured on the inside. You can even get a measuring system from Home Depot, where they measure the walls from one side to the next side. And that way you can make your own, like, map of your house, so you can find out what the square footage is. So you're going to measure it on the outside and inside, and then you'll get your average of what the square footage is. Price per square foot. If it's a house, let's just say it's $100, but a manufactured home, it might be $75. You're still going to want to pull comps up in the area to find out how much it is price per square foot for your homes in your area for a manufactured mobile home. I hope that cleared that up. Sid Luscious, come on now. Stop that. Yucky. Who's on first said, are metal roofs the best choice for simple roof designs as far as cost, durability, maintenance, longevity, environmental, fire, storm, insurance requirements? Edward, this is Eddie's wheelhouse. He used to do roofs. Are metal roofs better?
Generally, yes. And I would say yes. But if you have an R panel roof, just know every 10 years, probably a little bit less, you're going to be changing all the screws. So you'll have about 50 years. They're not lifetime. Metal roof is not lifetime. And then if you have a standing seam roof, it is better because it will cover those screws. But the only problem with that is that if there is a leak, and let's say it's on the left side of the house and they started the panels on the right side of the house, they're going to have to remove all those panels to get to the leak, fix the leak, and then you're going to have to put brand new panels up. You can't reuse the old ones because once you uncrimp them, it's done. Hopefully that answered that.
I'm reading my comment section as I'm listening to you talk about roofs. There's somebody being mean in there. There's no reason to be ugly. Smart Think says, Kristina, what people don't understand about high cost of living places like New York City, it forces you to do better, make money. It surrounds you with other people who have that mindset. You can't get that in Kentucky. I don't buy that for a minute. I don't buy that in for one freaking minute. People that have the aptitude to want to do better, I don't care if you're living in the swamp in the middle of Louisiana. Some of the people I have met here in Louisiana, you would look at them and think, oh, wow, those people are trash. That's what your opinion would be, because your first intake of their beat up old truck and they're living in a mobile home, and you'd be like, they don't want better for their lives. But you know what? They're happy in their lives, and they're probably making more money than you are. Those people that you used to watch that show, Swamp People, those are actual people that live here in Louisiana that are rolling in it, but they happen to live a very simple life because they don't required to like keep up with the Joneses. They're perfectly content with their beat up jeans and their beat up truck. It makes them happy. If you want something for yourself, it doesn't matter where you live here in the United States. If you want it, you can have it. You just have to work for it. And I don't think because you live in New York City, it's going to make you want to do better. I don't think that happens. If people don't want it and they live in New York City, it isn't going to force them to do it. I don't buy it. Nope. Rick Smith says, next they will be proposing a cat tax. Oh, Rick, I'm in big trouble if they propose a cat tax. I'll be bankrupt. I'll be totally bankrupt. I didn't know if you knew this though. I'm not a tax person. Eddie, throw up our tax guy's name but in 2025, in some cases, you can deduct your pet's care, whether that's doctor's visits, emergency stuff, pet food. I don't know the specifics of it. You need to check with a tax professional to get that done. Yeah, go to these guys right here, Attract. These are the ones who do our taxes. I just saw a video about how I don't know how it works. Work with your tax professional, but you can take some money off as a deduction for your pet's care in 2025. I don't know the specifics. Ask them. What's their number, Eddie? Give them their number. Give them their go to hit the contact number. Yeah. Da-da-da-da-da. Do they have a phone number on there? Oh, you got to fill out a form. Man, I want a phone number. Is it 225? I can't read the rest. Eddie, what's the phone number? 225. I can't read it, Pumpkin.
It is 225-460-4700.
Yeah, have them help.
460-4700.
Eddie, that was your on-air voice. Yeah, call them. They'll help you with that tax credit. Yeah, those are our tax people. They've saved us some money. Thank goodness.
Live from KMS.
Yes. Yep. They call it the kitty tax. I would be in bad shape. Bad shape. You need kitty litter for your business. Eddie invented the Kristina AI to bug the real Kristina. I have a friend that created that online number. So if you guys want to leave a message for me next week, or you have a real estate question, or you even want to comment on something that we've spoken about in previous live streams, all you have to do is call 888. What is the number, Eddie? 255-0197. 888-255-0197. Leave a message for the evil AI Kristina robot that's on there. But I every time you leave a message, I download it, whether you're mean or not, and I always put it up on the screen for next week.
That's 888-255-0197.
That's right, Eddie. And it's not for a limited time only. It's you can do this every week, 5 days a week, 7 days a week. Man, I need to start drinking. The Peaceful Warrior for 400 years says metal roofs are better but more expensive, right? Yes, correct. But I'm going to give you a little FYI. Here in the state of Louisiana, you can have a traditional roof put on your, and they'll say it's a 30-year roof or even a 40-year roof. They'll say that, right? But the insurance company can come around and say after 10 years, well, granted you have a 40-year roof, but we don't think has the same we think there has too much wear and tear on it. So now we're going to increase your insurance policy unless you replace your roof. You've only had it on there for 10 years. But if you have a metal roof, they're not going to make you replace it as quickly.
A 30-year roof will only last in perfect conditions. They are only a 20-year roof. And if you have a 3-tab shingle, you might as well say it's a 10-year roof.
Yeah, but Eddie, we have that. And after 10 years for a 30-year roof.
We also live in Louisiana and had how many hurricanes? I mean, I disagree with it also, but at the same point, that's the reason why. I mean, 30-year roofs will never last.
You're supposed to be on my side, Eddie.
I am on your side. Get a metal roof.
Zip it. Somebody said, why are we calling? You call that number to leave a message, like you want to leave a comment for next week's live stream. And then I'll take that voice message and I'll put it on the screen for next week. Or if you have a real estate related question, you can leave it on that machine as well. That little robot, Kristina.
Again, that's 888-255-0197.
Zip it, Eddie. All right, everybody. I want to say thank you so much for engaging in this conversation. It was really fun to actually kind of talk to you and have your comments being shown up on the screen. We haven't done it like this in a while. And I always like to hear your opinions about some of these very crucial issues that are heading and facing many of us, especially when we're trying to find the most affordable housing options across the United States. It's not always easy to say to somebody, well, if you don't like it there, or if it's too much, hurricanes, just move. They make it sound like it's the easiest thing in the world. When really, a lot of these people have lived in this area for years. They have family here. They even have some land named after them. And insurance companies have made it more and more difficult for people to have to deal with trying to live in the area that they've lived in for years. There has to be a better way. And I don't have all the answers. And I loved hearing your comments on what you think should be done about it. So next week, we'll have one of these conversations again. Who knows what's going to pop up in the headlines? Like they've been showing us over and over again. We are living in unprecedented times. And hopefully I want to get into some unprecedented times that creates more affordable housing for each and every one of you, because I will still stand by the fact I want everybody to have a very affordable, very safe place to live, because I think every single human being deserves it. All right. If you need to get a hold of me and you want to leave me a little message, not on the answering call, you don't want to call the AI, you just want to give me a little email, go to my website, KristinaSmallhorn.com. Click on one of the pink buttons, fill out the form, and leave your comment in the comment section of that form. And we'll have a little email exchange, a little back and forth, a little talky. If you want to share this share this live stream as a podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you just look up Kristina Smallhorn, Real Estate for Everyone, and you can share this week's live stream as a podcast on Monday. And he always releases it on Monday, except for last Monday because he forgot because it was Super Bowl and he got all excited. But we'll forgive him. We'll forgive him. I don't know if anybody else can see Sid's comments there, but he thinks that I have an Onlys fan. I do not have an OnlyFans page, but if I did, I would only show feet pictures. I would be the feet pic girl. And I would have no problem like walking in honey or whatever. If times got tough, I would definitely do some feet and hand pictures. So, Eric the Blue said, great conversation as always. To my very best. Totally agree with Kristina. Great chat. Yeah, this was fun. I liked this format very much. I enjoyed seeing you guys' comments because it lets me get into y'all's heads too. So I don't think I'm the only crazy one. We all can be crazy together. All right, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. And I hope your week goes really well. I hope the unprecedented time is a good unprecedented time because I'm tired. We're all tired. All right, everybody. So long. Fair.
Kristina signing off. This dream's about to close. Tiny homes, big dreams, the wisdom she bestows. Real estate queen, always keeping us in toes. Hustle on 1,000, every vibe she shows.